Should I start with the serrated pins or the spool pins? Hi, I'm Ahren Thielker, a security engineer and physical security specialist at Pulsar Security. In this video, we're going to provide a quick and dirty tutorial to some basic lockpicking techniques. When we're finished, terms like pin, tumbler, and plug will be old hat, and you'll be ready to pick your way through your locks at home just before heading to the hardware store to buy some more. Let's dig in. So today we're going to start with this clear practice lock made by Southard. This is a really nice training tool because not only does it provide you with a good opportunity to learn to feel out a lock, it also gives you a good visual feedback because you can actually see what's happening as you manipulate each of the pins. Let's start with a little bit of lock anatomy here. This big clear acrylic part is called the lock body. In most locks, then you're going to find that's made of metal. In some cases, it'll be plastic, but basically its purpose is to house all of the components and try to prevent somebody from coming in and breaking it with a hammer or something along those lines. This metal piece here, we would refer to this as the plug or the barrel. It's where the actual key goes. It's got this keyway cutout shape, and that's an interesting shape to try to actually prevent pick tools from going inside and manipulating those pins. So in this case, it goes up, it cuts to the left, cuts hard to the right, and then straight up from there. It's just to try to prevent easy access for those tools. And obviously the key shape lines up with that, so it can go in nice and easily and then open. Above that, let's talk about the pins. So you have this key that has these different cuts on it. And what you're trying to do is line up those pins along with a shear line. So you have your key pins, and those are a certain length. So for example, these two are going to be taller than the ones at each end in order for this all to line up. So you have your key pins that line up with your driver pins, and the driver pins are the next ones above, and those are what actually holds the lock in place when there's no key in. And then you have your springs on the very top to keep tension on everything and make sure that those pins are always in place doing their job. Once everything lines up with that shear line, then it allows that barrel to turn within the lock body. So you can see these 5 little brass dots in here. Those are our key pins, and you can see that they're all lined up perfectly with the top. They wiggle a little bit when I try to take that key in and out. That's because the key cuts have sort of those angles at the edges. But the important part here is that all of these are lined up perfectly along with the shear line, which allows that barrel to turn. So as I remove this key, let's look at these pins going up and down one by one. So there's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Keys out, lock is locked again. So now that we have a basic understanding of how these locks work, let's go ahead and look at some tools. I'll put this over here. So again, this kit is made by Southard. There are plenty of kits available ranging in price all over the place. You can get kits with many different picks, or you could buy single picks, just really whatever fits your budget and your desire to learn about these different tools best. We have a bunch of rakes. We have picks of varying heights and angles and sizes and shapes. We have a bunch of turning tools here. We're not going to worry about any of that today. All we're going to work with is going to be a single tension tool, which is this bent L-shaped piece of metal here, and a single hook pick. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my tension tool and I'm going to put it straight back into the keyway. You want to make sure it's not angled down too far because it could dig into the lock body, making it harder for this barrel to turn once all the pins are lined up. You also want to make sure it's not angled up too high because that could get in the way of you manipulating your hook here. So put it straight back, and apply just a little bit of pressure. You want to make sure you're not pressing too hard, and a good way to know that you're pressing too hard would be if you see the tool bending, or if when you lift your finger away, there's that line that's left there. You'll see that stay there for more than a couple of seconds, then you're pressing too hard. So with just a little bit of pressure, you lift that away and that line is still there. Now it's gone. That's about right. So what I'll do is I will now hold it this way just so that I can show you what's happening as it happens. Let's go ahead and start here with just a little bit of pressure. I will feed my tool back into there, and I feel that pin 1 is binding up. That means that it's sort of sticking, whereas the others move a little more freely. This one is hard in place. And that's because while this looks like a straight line, it's not actually. Variances in manufacturing mean that all of these are slightly out of line with one another. And that means that as we turn, then one is going to bind up before the others. So let's go ahead and press pin 1 up. And I've just felt that set. You want to make sure that you're not pressing up so high that the key pins go up there, because if they do, then that's still going to prevent the barrel from turning. You want to make sure that everything falls along that break point, that shear line. So pin 1 is now set. Let's go ahead and try pin 2. That still moves. Pin 3 still moves. Pin 4, I think pin 4 just set. Let's move to pin 5. Oh, and sometimes you got to start over. You just got to let that pressure off. Let all the pins drop again. Maybe rake across it just to make sure that everything is falling back into place. And let's start fresh. So we'll go pin 1. That's set. Pin 2 and 3 are just fine. Pin 4 is good. Pin 5 is now open. So this lock is now open. You want to make sure that you don't turn this tool all the way around, because while it's normally filled with a key along the open back of this keyway, in this case it's open, and you could spill out your driver pins and your springs and end up in a position where you have a broken lock. Along those lines, you want to make sure that you're not using a lock that you rely on. So you don't want to be practicing this on your front door. You don't want to be practicing this on your gym locker, provided you actually need to secure something in there. You only want to be using a lock that you own, that you don't rely on. Because if you break it, you're not going to be in such a hard position if you don't rely on that. So on the side here, let's see if I can show you that. You see all these pins, and they're set back at different depths. Those actually correspond to the cuts in the key. So some are shallower, some are deeper. And when we had the key in here before, then all of them were pressed up against the body. In this case, they can sort of move around freely, and they've got some space to move. So we can actually see those move around. So let's go ahead and close this back up. So working with the plastic training tool is all good and well, but let's go ahead and take some of what we've learned and apply it practically. This is a Master 141. It's a pretty simple lock, but it's enough for our purposes. In the plastic training tool here, we could actually count the number of pins that were there. In this one, it's all hidden away. So let's count how many pins there are. What I'm going to do is take my hook tool, put it all the way to the back, and then lift up against the pins so that I'm lifting them all as high as they go. And then I'm going to slowly pull this back and count the number of clicks. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're working with 4 pins here. So I will take my turning tool, place that all the way in, and again with just the lightest amount of pressure here, I'm going to start to feel and see which pins bind up. Pin 2. Pin 1. And pin 4. And we're open. I hope you've enjoyed this simple lockpicking tutorial. There's definitely a lot more to learn, such as spool pins, serrated pins, bump keys, and lock bypasses, so be sure to catch up with us in our next video while we go over some more advanced techniques. For Pulsar Security, I'm Ahren Thielker. Thanks for watching.